welcome to my channel, Dr. Teacher Mom. Today we will be doing something exciting. We'll be looking at narrative writing. Now, narrative writing is basically writing a story, just another synonym for story writing. In narrative writing, we need to have a clear beginning, opening, middle, and ending. So today we will be looking at how to write good story beginnings. Or LO, learning objective is to be able to understand what makes a good story beginning and begin to use these features in our own writing. Let's begin. The exam board that we will be looking at is EDUCAS, and we will be focusing on component 1 of the paper, section B. The two assessment objectives are AO5, which is worth 60% of the marks available. The AO5 assessment criteria is looking at communicating clearly, effectively, and imaginatively, selecting and adapting tone, style, and register for different forms, purposes, and audience. Also organizing information and ideas, so writing using clear, structural, grammatical, and coherent paragraphs. AO6 is 40% of the marks available, and it's basically looking at the SPAG, the spelling, punctuation, and grammar. So in AO6, you're expected to use a range of vocabulary and sentence structures for clarity, purpose, and effect, which accurate spelling and punctuation. When we write, we are looking at focusing on our TAP or text type, or audience, and our purpose. So this text type that we're looking at today is narrative writing. We're also, as I've said before, writing in clear, coherent paragraphs. And we're varying our sentence structures, so we're using our simple, our compound, and our complex sentences. We always have to check our spelling, punctuation, and grammar, or SPAG, when we're writing. So we will be checking our SPAG throughout the writing process. I will be sharing two story openings with you today, and these are going to be used as exemplars to help you to write more effectively and write openings that will really engage the reader. So I'm going to read this extract from you. This opening is from The Man with the Yellow Face. As I read, I'd like you to think about how effective is this as a beginning, and why is it effective? When you're doing that, can you also write your points down, so that will help to clarify your understanding? I want to tell you how it happened, but it's not easy. It's all a long time ago now, and even though I think about it often, there are still things I don't understand. Maybe I never did. Why did I even go into the machine? What I'm talking about is one of those instant photograph booths. It was on platform 1 at York Station, 4 shots for £2.50. It's probably still there now if you want to go and look at it. I've never been back, so I can't be sure. Anyway, there I was with my uncle and aunt waiting for the train to London, and we were 20 minutes early, and I had about £3 on me, which was all that was left of my pocket money. I could have gone back to the kiosk and bought a comic, another bar of chocolate, a puzzle book. I could have gone into the cafe and bought Cokes all round. I could have just hung on to it, but maybe you know the feeling when you've been on holiday and your mom has given you a certain amount to spend. You've just got to spend it. It's almost a challenge. It doesn't matter what you spend it on. You've just got to be sure it's all gone by the time you get home. Why the photographs? I was 13 years old then, and I suppose I was what you'd call good looking. Girls said so anyway. Fair hair, blue eyes, not fat, not thin. It was important to me how I looked. The right jeans, the right trainers, that sort of thing. But it wasn't crucial to me. What I'm trying to say is, I didn't take the photographs to pin on the wall or to prove to anyone what a movie star I was. I just took them. So here you have the extract, and remember the question was, how effective is this as a beginning? Does it make you want to read on to find out what he's talking about? I want you to notice that the writer does not tell us what happened. This elusive thing that he mentions at the beginning, I want to tell you how it happened. And that is placed for a particular effect. It is going to grab the reader's attention and allow them to want to continue to find out what is it that happened. So you should have written down your ideas for the first one. Let us look at a second opening, and I want you to be comparing the two openings and thinking about how is the writer using this beginning to create effect. What makes this opening effective, and how does the writer interest the reader? So this extract is from I Am Legend. It's by Richard Matheson, and if you remember, I Am Legend, that film, that movie that came out, so it was made into a movie, right? So this is famous now, but this is the text version of the movie. So I'll read it and we'll see the opening. We will think about those three questions as I read, and please make notes. So this is set in 1976, January 1976. On those cloudy days, Robert Neville was never sure when sunset came, and sometimes they were in the streets before he could get back. If he had been more analytical, he might have calculated the approximate time of their arrival, but he still used the lifetime habit of judging nightfall by the sky, and on cloudy days that method didn't work. That was why he chose to stay near the house on those days. He walked around the house in the dull grey of afternoon, a cigarette dangling from the corner of his mouth, trailing thread-like smoke over his shoulder. He checked each window to see if any of the boards had been loosened. After violent attacks, the planks were often split or partially pried off, and he had to replace them completely, a job he hated. Today, only one plank was loose. Isn't that amazing? He thought. In the backyard, he checked the hothouse and the water tank. Sometimes the structure around the tank might be weakened, or its rain catchers bent or broken off. Sometimes they would lob rocks over the high fence around the hothouse, and occasionally they would tear through the overhead net and he'd have to replace panes. Both the tank and the hothouse were undamaged today. So how does the writer create an effective beginning in I Am Legend? What makes this opening effective, and how does the writer interest the reader? Notice that in the first extract that we looked at, the perspective was, or the viewpoint was, first person. The writer was speaking about something that was personal to him. He was using the pronoun I. In this one, it is from third person narrative. So third person perspective. Throughout we hear the pronoun he. Okay, so that you have had two examples, one from a first person perspective and one from a third person perspective. When you do write your own narrative, you will choose which perspective to write from. Right, good beginnings, right? And we're going to talk about 8 things that I think are key to having a good beginning. You may decide to use some of them, or you may decide to use 2, 3, all of them. It's really up to you. And these 2 examples, they do use a lot of these examples of good beginnings. So talk to the reader, use third or first person narrative. You can shock the reader with something. And when I say shock, I don't mean frighten the reader. I mean something that the reader did not expect to happen. Create a tense atmosphere. You could create a very clear picture using images, descriptions. Start with something odd, which is similar to shocking your reader. Use direct speech. You could start in the middle of the action. Make your reader laugh. How is this done in the 2 extracts? Let's look at the man with the yellow face. Make your reader laugh. And how does he make us laugh in The Man with the Yellow Face? He says, I suppose I was what you'd call good looking. Girl said so anyway. And when I read that, I had a little smile. I actually had a little chuckle when I read that. Just like a young, arrogant boy saying, I was what you call good looking. Girls said so anyway. So that he used that in the beginning. Start in the middle of something. So he used the sentences. I want to tell you how it happened. But it's not easy. It's all a long time ago now. And even though I think about it often, there are still things I don't understand. Maybe I never did. So we know that it's going to be in the middle of the story, middle of the action, and then he's going to work his way to the end. I spoke about talking to the reader, and he uses a lot of I. Even the example with making your reader laugh is also talking to us and using first person narrative. So he says, I suppose I was what you'd call good looking. A girl said so anyway. It's as if he's speaking to a friend. So that's going to draw us in, and it is going to be very effective. Shock your reader. He uses a rhetorical question. We know that anytime you use a rhetorical question, that is going to instantly create that connection with the reader. So he says, why did I even go into the machine? What I'm talking about is one of those instant photograph booths. It was on platform 1 at York Station. 4 shots for £2.50. So we're not expecting anything to go wrong with the machine. It's going to really shock us because it's going to go against our expectation. Create a tense atmosphere. He creates this tension by saying, I want to tell you how it happened. And the readers are wondering what happened. And we know that it's not something positive because of all the questions. Why did I even go into the machine? Maybe I never did. So that question around why did he have to go in the machine, which results in what happens, or maybe foreshadows what happens later. So it does create a tense atmosphere. Then he uses direct direct speech. So it's as if he's speaking to us using the pronoun you. So it's probably still there now if you want to go and look at it. And then we spoke about starting with something odd. The whole idea going into a machine, taking a photograph is it's not an unusual activity, it's commonplace. So it then becomes odd when he keeps questioning why did he go into the machine, and then create a very clear picture. And he does that. He talks about the instant photograph booth. He tells us how much it costs, 4 shots for £2.50. He tells us where it is. It was on platform 1. And then later on as well, he describes where he is, platform 1, York Station. So it does create a clear mental picture of where the story is positioned, and this young man, that something's going to happen to change this young man's life forever. I would like you to go and have a look at I Am Legend as well. So you can go through I Am Legend on your own. That is my homework to you, and see how many of the examples of the good beginnings I Am Legend might show or might reveal to you when you read it through. So as I said before, it's Educast. This is the exam board that we are looking at today, component 1 and section B. So in this section, you will be assessed for the quality of your creative prose writing skills. It's 24 marks for your communication and organization. So the AO5 criteria of the mark scheme, but 16 marks for the SPAG criteria, so the AO6. So for your vocabulary, your sentence structures that you've used, your spelling, and your punctuation. You must aim at writing about 450 to 600 words. That's just an A3 sheet backed, so both sides. So that's manageable. I often tell my students to aim to write 5 paragraphs, because if you think about it, you need to have your opening where you introduce the setting. You need to have a clear beginning with the opening, and then you have your middle and your end. And of course, you can have 2 paragraphs for the middle, that would be 3 paragraphs, and then the ending, another 2 paragraphs. So giving you yourself that structure. What is the task that I would like you to do as well? So, how do I know that you have understood? It is by practice. Or how do you know? It is going to be by practice, and that repetition of the practice. And that's the key to be a successful writer. You have to practice. You have to keep writing and keep proofreading that writing. So you're going to be writing a story about an adventure that you have experienced. I would like you to use the openings that we have looked at in the lesson. You can magpie elements from these openings, and I speak about magpieing in most of my tutorials. The best people magpie. We steal bits that we like and we make them our own. We add to them, we improve them, we put our style to it, our own style. You're going to then improve your opening using elements from these 8 features of a good beginning that I've shared with you in this tutorial. I hope you enjoy it, and please write me a comment so I can know how well you're doing and if you need any further support. At the end of a tutorial, I like to check your understanding, how well you do, and my lucky number today is number 2. So we're going to look at what number 2 says. It says, today I was able to make progress because, so that's your sentence stem. Please feel free to complete that sentence. How well do you do today? Well, we've come to the end of our tutorial, and as usual, I'm so happy that you've joined me for this and you've stayed to the end, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.